steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
Bad ideas, good stories.
Number 30.
Double threes?
Yeah.
Double trips?
Trip.
I don't know what that means. Well, it's nice to see you again, my friend.
Yeah.
It's been many moons. Actually, one
It's
moon.
almost been a month.
Been a moon.
Yeah, it's been a
not
month.
many. Yeah.
You know, you were fighting off quarantine.
Just dodging them.
Dodging
COVIDs.
No,
yeah.
dodging COVID, getting the quarantine.
Yeah, getting me quarantined up. So that went fine, just boring, And then the person who I knew got it, he's recuperating, but still kind of kicking his ass a bit. And his whole family got it. And so, yeah, people be getting it.
So are any of them hospitalized, like severely, or they just kind of like
stuck at home, hating life?
Yeah. I just tattooed another nurse the other day, and she mentioned that her son got it. Somehow she didn't. As soon as he had symptoms, she's like, okay, you're in the basement. We're getting you tested. And then you go in the basement until we know what's up. Feeding him at the door of the basement. Here's your plate of food. You take it downstairs, leave the plate. She scrubs it. And she said he had 3 or 4 days of which he would consider one of the worst flus of his life. And it's been probably 2.5 weeks, and he just hasn't gotten his taste or his smell back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that'd be a good diet.
Well, I was just thinking about how many parents are going to stick to this basement feeding program after this is done. Didn't we used to do this all the time? Like, didn't we all just have cousins that you only seen once every once in a while, or you heard, and you're like, wasn't there a Betty Ann at the last Christmas? She's like, yeah, no, she's around, and just don't go in the basement.
Or Uncle Stoner.
Yeah, sure.
Uncle Stoner, he's in the basement.
They just lived there anyways. Yeah, nobody was keeping them there. It was just gravity and weed.
Yeah, exactly. Sneak out the bottom door. And, exactly.
We've all been there. I live in a basement.
I think in my early 20s.
I'm currently in one.
Yeah, right. In this house. This house was my parents in my early 20s. Well, actually in high school as well. But in my early 20s, I moved back, and I was Uncle Stoner in the basement, basically.
That's
I
funny.
had access to the back door. Bring visitors down, usher them out after. Nobody knows it better. Yeah,
Like an adult.
like a grown up. I'm a grown up, damn it. In my
Sneaking people
mom's
through my
basement.
secret door. Yeah, like an adult.
Living in World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
very functional.
Were you into
social
World of
life.
Warcraft?
No. Actually, I got. I was just into Doom and first-person shooters. As soon as they came out, they blew me away.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that was a game changer for me as far as gaming went. As soon as I played Doom, I'm like, wow, I can run around and just blow shit away. Wolfenstein, stuff like that.
When you were playing that, was that just like on a at home computer or
Yeah.
at school, just on a single one or whatever? Or
I got a bootleg version, and I put it on my PC at the time, which was my first computer. And this is back when we were still, I think internet really wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
You'd have to use dial-up using your modem to BBSs, like bulletin boards, and you'd leave a message and see what people left after. It was a long time ago, and somebody got me a bootleg version of Doom. And I remember my brother sat on my bed watching me play. My mom came in to talk about something and just stood there watching me run around because this was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Like they were used to Pong and Atari, and all of a sudden this pops up.
Oh, I remember playing Mortal
Nintendo.
Kombat and trying to explain to my mom those are real people. These aren't cartoon characters they drew. These are they took. It wasn't motion capture then. It was pictures or whatever, right? But it was it's real people, and see how the shadows move with them. That was all groundbreaking at the time. But no, I remember with Doom because the first time I played it was at school because we had a network of computers. And that was the first place in town that had computers, and the internet was the school. And then gradually other people got computers around town. But for a while, that's where you just used one. And so that was kind of cool for us because then it was a big LAN setup or whatever. So when I first played it, it was against and with all my friends on this big LAN setup. So there'd be 10 of us all playing Doom at the same time, or Descent, or these other kind of first-person shooters. And did we have some good times? I'm playing the original Warcrafts and stuff. Well, GoldenEye was great. That was on the TV. I remember doing that. This was the only time I ever remember playing video games where it was there was 8 or 9 of us all in the same room, because it's the computer room at the school. It's enormous,
Oh, okay.
And so I've never had that before. Even had buddies, maybe set up 1 or 2 TVs at the same time if they're really going after it, but never 10, a dozen people all yelling at each other over the thing, and they're all playing the same game. And it was really quite a lot. And I remember us running tournaments of Warcraft, in the computer room, people playing off, and then and then whittling it down, doing our own little shit like that. Yeah, fuck, it was a lot of fun.
It's strange how so much has changed. Where I'm not part of this community. I think it happened maybe 10 years, 15 years after I was born, that generation of young people that came up with a completely different immersion in virtual reality or cyber reality. People that were living on the AOL message boards, or they had the Sims games and the Second Lives, and like the people that are World of Warcraft people, that they have a social group on there, almost like social media, but they go off and they do things and they shoot the shit and they send each other messages. And I met people that are like, oh yeah, this girl, she doesn't like us and she's causing trouble for us socially, and we can't mess with her and we can't really tell her off because she's got a really big following on Second Life, and that would really upset things. And I'm like, what's Second Life? And they're like, it's an internet game where you develop this alternate personality, and like she's huge, she's super popular on this game, and if we piss her off in real life, she could totally destroy us. And I'm like, in real life she could destroy you, or just online? Because you also play this game. It was so weird to me that people exist like that.
Well, and I never had a really good experience with like a really deep kind of immersive one like that until playing Red Dead Redemption 2 with the online world, because I'd played the first one.
You run into different cowboys
awesome.
And shit like that?
Yes.
Really?
Well, when you're doing the online one, that's what it is. It's populated. I think the lobbies are up to like 28 people or something like that. So as you're going through the world, it's still all the same AI controlled shit that's going on, but then you'll see like a blue name over somebody, and that's a real life person doing the same shit you are out there. And I've never really played like that anything, because I never played World of Warcraft. The Warcrafts I played were like the original ones, right? So it wasn't where you were building a character and shit and making your own narrative and like doing all that, right? It was kind of my first experience with that, and it was very frustrating in many ways, but also like even the most mundane shit then gets to be like kind of fun to get done, because it's kind of like it's closer to getting it done because there's a lot more repercussions in a real world, when you're like, no, somebody else, they know when you're moving goods across the fucking map and they can rob your goddamn rob your wagon, like
that's funny.
and they know, and as soon as you see it doing, you're like, that's another real, this isn't like some set up part of the game, this is someone else who decided, no, I'm on right now, what is it, I'm gonna rob that guy, I'm gonna rob that guy, and now it's fucking on, and it makes it, I don't know, it's just a whole different level of immersion for me that I'd never experienced, and everybody else has for like the last 20 years apparently playing those kind of games, but I was just out of the loop on it, because I've played video games, but it's fighting games, sports games, shit that it's like just get on, stuff that I always relate to playing with someone else on the couch, basically, is like what video games are for me a lot of times. The really big ones, like even the story-driven ones like Tomb Raider and Uncharted, Drake's fucking Fortune or whatever, I just couldn't get into them,
They're too big or
it's,
too
well,
immersive?
and it's they seem very linear to me too, because it's like, you kind of just do these things and follow this story, and I kind of want to do my own fucking thing, or just go and play a game of hockey, just go and have a boxing match,
I like following a storyline, even a big game, Skyrim, all the Borderlands, or what was the other one, Fallouts, all of those, they're big games. I never played
either like Borderlands or Fallout. A lot of people I knew were fucking like
Borderlands has
hundreds
it's a tighter storyline to follow in Borderlands, as opposed to Fallout. It's just a big wide world. You can just stumble into the wrong mission or come across stuff. But
I like where else you're totally out of your depth. And you're like, holy fuck, it's
run away.
Real life. You can't just like, I can't go across this bridge, then all of a sudden you get to a certain level, the bridge is open. It's like, no, you can just wander into a fucking Dragon's Den or some shit like with Skyrim. Skyrim I was into.
Well, and what's interesting,
games?
When you think about some of that stuff, I watch these movies like True Grit and like the old Highway to Yuma or 310 into Yuma, and being a frontier person, and like you mentioned, like that you see somebody on the horizon. Is that a good guy or a bad guy?
Instantly friend or foe. I have to know now.
Chances are they're going to be a foe,
15 seconds, because they might be close enough to pop me.
You might have 3 or 4 buddies and they all have guns.
And that shit happens all the time. And there's because it really, especially Red Dead Redemption 2, they really grew communities online where it's gangs basically. And then what happened after that was that there was even broader communities where people got in to kind of regulate that. So it's like there's mercenary groups now that are like in the game. It's not something you do in the game where you become a mercenary. These guys just basically build, I can't remember the name of the one clan specifically, but they're a group of mercenaries. And if you're trying to do missions in the game and you're getting beef from other fucking players out there, or you're just having trouble doing it, exactly, you hire them as protection, and you can pay them through different ways through the game by transferring pelts and shit like that to them, so that they can go and get cash in the game or whatever. Right? So they built their own economic system with barter and money integrated, so that they could do this, and they do. They have these conversations with people. Okay, 3 o'clock, I'll be on. We'll meet you. We'll go run this trade mission with you, and and what happens a lot of times too is these guys, they're not only organized because it's a big group. They're also really fucking good at the game.
They've been
Their
playing
shit's
it
all
long enough,
maxed out, right? So then these jerk-offs come in and try and fuck with them. Well, these guys
One-shot
dismantle
snipes
them. And not just that, because with Red Dead, it's got this thing built into it where you regenerate again in the relative area, so you can kind of continue to engage with whoever you're having beef with, or you can do this parlay system and run away, or you get like 10 minutes off where you can't fight each other and you can go to a different part of the map or whatever, right? So a lot of these guys won't do that. They'll leave it so it's just you can play in this aggressive style. Well, as soon as that happens and these guys are really good, well, they shoot their horses, they hog tie them, they dangle them from bridges, shit that just fucks up, all 45 minutes of playing time all of a sudden, and you had a bunch of pelts and shit on your horse that are all gone now because your horse is dead, So it kind of fucks your day up a little bit when they do that, and they do it enough to these guys that come in, the griefers they call them, to run them right out of the servers a lot of times.
Holy.
But what'll happen is, it doesn't happen so much in the console playing, but on the PC, these guys will get into these servers and they'll start following YouTube personalities and shit like that, or playing, or other streamers. They'll find when they're on streaming, and then they'll get in there and fuck with them the whole time because they know that they're doing a thing, and there's 10,000 people watching them try to go do this moonshiner mission, right? So these guys will get on there and purposely fuck with them, but then chase them to like other servers and then switch their names on their IP so they can fucking still get in after they've been booted. So it gets really toxic after a while, where it's like levels of like, look, I'm just trying to play this fucking game, and I just spent 2 hours with these goddamn kids chasing me around, murdering me, teabagging me, dangling me from fucking trees, like, how is this fucking fun at this point, right? So I did have that kind of experience even near the beginning of that, just for a bit, and then I figured out how to kind of not engage with that and just avoid it if I didn't want to, and then it wasn't really that much of a problem. You still run across shit every once in a while where you're like, fuck, I'm trying to do this mission, there's no way around it, and there's a bunch of people in that town, and they'll be in there shooting everybody in the saloon, so you're like, well, I'll try and sneak through here and not get murdered. I actually did that one time. This whole gang came into a town, and I got in there and dropped off, I'm gonna fucking go on a tangent here for a second, but I dropped off some pelts and got one of my guns all tuned up, got some engraving on it, went to the saloon, had a drink, found a ladder out back, climbed up on top of the saloon, and I'm standing out there just like looking around over the prairie, having a drink, and then I see these guys, blue guys, coming in from the horizon, and so I duck down behind the fucking thing so they can't see me.
Except your blue thing.
Well, but if they don't like aim at you right away, and you're not in the, if you're in the defensive mode, even, I think they can't really even see you. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't they can see you, it just doesn't pop up until you actually engage with them. Anywho, so I was hidden basically, as long as nobody came and looked up on the roof, or I didn't peek my head out or whatever. Well, these fucking guys came into town and just cleaned it out, started murdering everybody. They're dragging people down the street, starting shit on fire. So I just hid there the whole time while this went down. Then when they fucked off, I climbed down and picked up all the shit that I could from all the dead bodies, looted everything I could, fucked off. I was like, yeah, which is what I would do in that real life situation. It's like, would you be the hero? It's like, those guys all look like victims to me. There's not a hero in the bunch. I'm gonna stay here and go through everybody's pockets and boots and shit afterwards.
Have you ever seen the series Westworld?
No, but I think I'd be into that, because it's like, that's some next level mind fuckery with what's real and what's not.
It is, and the premise of Westworld is, if you have enough money, I think it's supposed to be like $40,000, you can go for a week and you get in this immersive reality where you become a cowboy. You get outfitted with your gun. You want to be a white hat or a black hat. Mm-hmm. You can be a villain or a hero, a good guy or bad guy, and you arrive at an island basically populated largely either by tourists or by robots pretending to be the locals.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want to the locals.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or ugly.
It's the same vibe with the Red Dead Online.
So that's exactly what it reminded me of.
Shit, and this is how it works.
And the further you get away from the center, the more dangerous it gets and more challenging it gets. So when you get out to the outskirts, it's like no man's land. You're running into bears and savages and crazy lunatics.
Savage bears, probably.
Savage bears, you know, muskrats that'll jump at your throat. But
you want to talk muskrats? I mean, let's just get off the trails here for a second.
But I really liked it because it brought an ethical component. If you could do whatever you want, free of consequence, what will you do? Yeah, exactly. And there's this one guy in the first episode, so it's not really a spoiler, and he just goes around and he's like one of the evilest motherfuckers that you've ever met, like absolute like black man in black. That's I think what he's called. Yeah. And I don't want to get into the raunchiness that he pulls, but it's a raunchy fucking dude. Mm-hmm. But through the series, it explains his role, and it's a bit of I don't want to spoil it. It's fucking good. I love the first series of Westworld. I haven't really gotten into the other ones because apparently, eventually, they realize that there's a samurai one. And then there's like other worlds that have been created that they're not even aware of. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, Westworld is definitely something to check out. Plus, it touches upon our reality.
Yeah.
What happens if you suddenly realize that your entire existence has been a fraud and everything's a simulation? Because these robots really believe that they are living this life, right? And it's pretty heavy.
Or what if that's just what existence is continued fucking regeneration in these fraudulent structures that you can just, this is what we do in this
Exactly.
one.
You
It's got
wake
dinosaurs.
up.
Yeah.
You wake up, you go about your life, and you go back to sleep. And you don't even realize that very much. Every day you wake up and you go about your life, there's just very minimal things that shift, and then you go back to sleep and you reset it and reset it. And it's always been that. And and that's just it. And
There's
suddenly
very few great divergences in someone's life, and that shit they write books and plays and fucking sing songs about. Like that's how rare it is.
So in Westworld, you get a glitch, and the robot gets a glitch and starts remembering the fact that they've been murdered over and over and over again, and saying, "What the fuck's what are these memories? Am I crazy?" Right?
Yeah.
And then they start realizing that they're in a simulation. Well, the robot realizes they're in an entertainment land, as opposed to, if it happened to a human, it's that simulation trip. So it's a deep thing if you get into
I
it.
dig that.
Yeah, it's very cool. Check
I
it out.
I love
if
a
you
good
can find it.
mind bending. And especially if there's like an entertaining story going along with it. But bend my mind on me.
My mind's been bent a lot, and I'm not really super stoked on bending it for a while. I like brainless comedies a lot.
Yeah.
I don't
Fair
like,
enough.
Yeah. I don't like horror movies. Although I have been watching kind of a heartbreaking, I'll call it a bittersweet comedy. What is it? Shameless. We touched upon it. Are you familiar with Shameless on Netflix?
I've seen a bit of it, yeah.
Basically, a South Side Chicago, like poor white trash family with a real degenerate dad who's very self-oriented over everybody else, drug addict, alcoholic, just a hustler. The family just basically abandons the family in favor of going and doing his own thing. The first time I tried to watch this, 3 episodes in, I just about smashed my TV. I'm like, fuck this guy. Dad's such a piece of shit. I can't watch this fucking show. And I turned it off, and I didn't watch it for like 2 years or a year. It was pretty ridiculous. And then I think we finished another show, The Fosters, which is ridiculously LGBTQ family growing up in, whatever. So we finished the however many series of The Fosters. I'm like, well, let's try Shameless. And we got through, I guess, 6 episodes, and I'm like, this is actually picking up. It's pretty funny. The douchebag dad starts getting his comeuppance to some degree, and I'm like, okay, so he's not that much of a douche through the whole fucking thing. And now, we're watching that. But it's weird because it gives me, it's got some social commentary about poverty, you know what I mean? And about how people in poverty are all kind of in the same boat, no matter what ethnicity you're in. And
great.
this one kid's trying to get into university, and he's the smartest kid in the hood, and he realizes, fuck, this is a different world, right? Like, I'm just outclassed, no pun intended, but outclassed by these people. They're dedicated to their academia, they're dedicated to improving their lot in life, and I coasted in the hood. Then when I come up here, I'm supposed to study, I'm supposed to buckle down. This world's totally different to me. So when you what's it called, when you level up, you're at the bottom of that next level. And
True.
So
a bleak way of looking at it. Yeah, but no, totally.
and you're starting from scratch. So I like that show. I've been watching Shameless a lot. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Shows about being poor.
Reality.
Yeah. Well, true dat. True dat. Whoops, it easy. What else did I've learned in the last couple weeks? Not being around. Not much, because I really didn't do fuck all for 2 weeks there.
I've been a maniac.
So still, well, I seen you were putting up lots of new videos, or I'm assuming new videos of you swinging machetes.
Yep.
And
So I don't know if it's the testosterone that my doctor gave me is finally starting to give me energy, creative kind of like push. But I decided in my downtime, instead of having naps, I'm like, I'm gonna go do a video and restart. I don't know the right word, but restart my martial arts channel, and mostly to do videos for people that are stuck at home. So I'm like basically Cali or stick fighting for the solar practitioner. So if you anybody wanted to look that up, that's Pintado stick boxing on YouTube, which is kind of cool. It was weird. I got bashed pretty hard in a fight, and that kind of took the wind out of my sails for a little while. And I'm like, my Cali's bullshit, because I couldn't do any Cali in this fight. Otherwise, I'd go to jail for seriously injuring a guy. And then there was the element where I really got into the ethics, the social philosophy stuff for a bit, and I did the Unrest Initiative program, so I kind of shifted my channel views towards that. But I looked, what was it, about a month and a half ago, and I realized that I've got like something like 8,500 followers on that channel that are there for martial arts instruction. So why don't I do that? You know, I don't have to be teaching knife fighting. I don't have to be being the toughest guy in the universe or pretending that I'm teaching you to be the toughest guy. But I could show you some forums and some swinging templates. And,
exactly. Yeah. You want technique?
Yeah, and stuff that people can do at home to entertain themselves.
Yep.
Plus, there's
swinging a stick is a lot of fun.
It can be, yeah, especially when you start doing the swirly stuff and, you know, you're doing some acrobatic stuff. Plus, you're learning to keep yourself safe in some degree, which is kind of what I think martial arts would be about. It's not being the toughest guy in the room. It's just like, hey, having your boundaries and knowing that you can keep yourself relatively safe. And, that kind of comes into play with, oh, Jesus, I lost my train of thought here. The COVID deal where we're really teetering on what the fuck are we going to do for a living at any given time. The health board, like right now, as we're recording this, Ontario, Manitoba, and Alberta, all tattoo shops have to be closed. Right? So everybody, like, till future notice, we can't accept clients. Have a nice day. I am now jobless. And I'm like, well, what's my next hustle? Where can I get another income stream coming in? And one of my buddies is a martial arts guy. He started doing his pressure points control tactics, PPCT, certification through the internet. So he set up a website, and you just log on, you do the videos, you send him a video, he reviews your video, he gives you a check mark on that module, and eventually you can get certified in this PPCT program. Now, it's a little different than what I'm doing because you need that to get jobs in certain security sectors. So, but he's making a decent penny. He's making lots a month off of just doing his internet stuff. All he has to do is grade videos and send a check mark and a certification back to a guy. Now, eventually, I'd like to maybe branch into, hey, if you want to be certified in this system that I do, you could teach it in your school, or you could teach it to your buddies. You just jump through these hoops, you do these modules, and I send you off your certification. That's one income stream, you know, and I know how to do it, so why not, right?
You enjoy doing it.
I love it, yeah.
You always get into it.
It's something that I do enjoy a lot. And then I was able to finally organize the tracks that I recorded on my own and put them on Bandcamp. If anybody wants to look that up, Standard Bearer 69 is what it's under. It's not good, but
I wouldn't say that. I was checking it out.
No, it's just me, you know. It was more or less a bunch of poems that I needed to put out, and people might be interested, so I might as well write some riffs and do a drum track.
Right? Like some music. Yeah.
But luckily, or interestingly enough, that got me in touch with a notorious ex-Oi guy from the Rock Against Communism scene in England from I think the 80s, one of the more notorious vocalists for one of the bad bands, very similar to Screwdriver. I don't want to give too much away right now, but this guy, he went to jail for an assault for a long time. He was like really into Blood and Honor and National Front and all like the bad organizations in the racist skinhead movement in the 80s, and then he got out, and he changed his ways, and he got into rave, and he's been tattooing, and he's a Buddhist now, and he does Reiki and stuff like that. So we touched base. So I'm probably going to do an interview for him for a new project that we're doing with that Dragon Slayer recovery, called Turning It Around, right? Like turning around your life and doing more positive stuff. And
is he doing like a podcast or something?
He's not doing. I just tracked him down.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just going to do an interview probably for a zine that we're going to do.
Cool.
I don't have the technological savvy to do like a podcast interview or anything, which would be cool if we could set that up somehow, but I don't know how to do that. Get guests that we could link from different places. Yeah, Russ, you know how to do the internets?
I sure do.
Oh, okay, so our tech guy knows how to do the internets. Our tech guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going to interview him and do a zine kind of thing about turning around to toxic lifestyle choices and turning it into positive. And if anybody could do that, it's going to be this guy, because he was one of the top 2 bands in the UK skinhead scene of the like notorious ones that probably encouraged no shortage of toxicity all around the world, because
there's decades now.
Yeah, you could still look up skinhead music, like racist skinhead music, and he's one of the top probably 4 or 5 bands that were out there. So luckily my band got us linked, and you know, on the positive tip, and that PMA stuff, and try and talk about turning lifestyle stuff around.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because you still enjoy the music.
Yeah.
You're just like, I wish I had a different message.
Yeah, yeah.
If I could go back, I would change the message. I enjoyed the music. I'd change some lyrics.
I was talking with, you remember Jose? Everybody remembers Jose because they've been watching our podcast. And I sent him some lyrics for Screwdriver about like capitalism, about exploiting the working class, but I didn't send him who wrote them. He's like, that's a great song. And I'm like, yeah, you communist. This is like straight up. Like, this is what these guys were singing about. But I think they were just blaming the wrong guys, you know? And what is that saying? You're too busy fighting horizontally as opposed to laterally. Yeah, you're blaming.
Well, and I mean, in all the hate groups, they always have like some nugget of truth that's around there that it's like, well, yeah, I agree with that, but it's like, why you got to sneak that hate in there too? You're like, I agree we got to smash the capitalist state, and these guys are taking advantage of it. And then why does it have to be white power though attached to that?
Well, and that's just it. I think somewhere along the line, everybody that gets involved with like activism, let's just call it activism, they know something's wrong with the system, and they're looking for the reason. But then what ends up happening is somebody comes in and, you know, sideswipes it and inserts some false kind of narrative like, don't you know it's the racial thing, or don't you know it's the Jews, or whatever the fuck it is. And they're like, oh really, that's who I should blame because something's wrong here, and everybody sees it. Oh, it must be those black guys that are immigrants.
And you agree with and these people, you can see the honest problem that exists and then believe their explanation for it and not even realize that they're giving it to you from a bigoted angle.
That's their real angle.
That's their
bigotry.
Exactly. They're going, well, yeah, that's the reason. You go, well, geez, that makes sense. And then when they go, well, and if you think they're up to that, well, here, I got more news for you then, brother.
Yeah,
you know, and then they start
brother.
going, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, how did I get this far away from reality?
Well, in the alt-right nowadays, they call that being red-pilled. Right? When you take the red pill, it's like Matrix. The blue pill, you stay where you are. The red pill, you go down the rabbit hole. Well, when you're red pilled in the alt-right circles, that means that you're cluing in to the conspiracies, and QAnon all considered themselves very red pilled. And it's
how'd that work out again, guys?
Well,
hey, QAnon just fizzled, disappeared. They find out that maybe it's this one dude, and it's like there hasn't been a post again. Like
I think they're still floating around, but they're underground, like these Trumpers. I think there are radical underground Trumpers.
Oh, for sure there. Yeah, for sure. It's just there's not as many of them, and it's not as vocal now.
Well, you deplatform people; they don't have a voice. It's quite simple.
I don't know. They still got OAN. They still got Fox News. They still got all these other right-wing media outlets that'll put these people on no matter what happens. And even deplatform like Facebook. Like the top 10 Facebook videos and shit are Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. Yeah, because that's who gets clicks because they're putting out the provocative, crazy shit.
And how many of the leftists are watching that too, right?
No,
just to like, fuck
but
that guy.
That's the opposite of deplatforming then, right? When they're the top and the clicks. And
but that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah. They're right, and they're pundits, and they're talking shit. But I'm talking like Proud Boys or National Vanguard or Stormfront.org or like real like, you know, what is that Richard Spencer guy? Those guys that were like, you know, hail Trump, like that kind of crazy level. Like those guys they're not being platformed, and increasingly the governments are finding like Proud Boys were declared a terrorist organization. So officially, just recently, within the last week or two, Proud Boys Canada made a news statement saying, we disband. Anybody who now claims to be a Proud Boy is an independent radical that is not associated with a larger organization. We are now officially disbanding our organization, which is what's necessary for radicals to see. Like, if you're a terrorist and they recognize you as being a terrorist and you didn't realize you were hanging out with terrorist types, well, shit, I don't want to be like that. Yeah, there was another...
That's what you should do. You shouldn't defend them. You shouldn't change the name and
step back from...
And fucking file the paperwork for your corporation in a different state. Like...
Well,
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
just see that happening. Because you actually... It's funny we were talking about this with how groups kind of co-opt causes to slide their own shit into there, and you're seeing that right now with these freedom marches in Saskatoon and shit.
How's this guy talking
because they're white fucking pride flags and shit flying there, and they go, no, this is freedom, and you're like, and this is whatever angle they're trying to give on, and it's like, okay, I see what
the
you're
freedom rally. But guess who's mostly there? Like working class white dudes, and guess who's also gonna fucking slip into their DMs, right? Like it's gonna be the guy. Actually, I just got sent this like an hour before we did this podcast with a photograph. A friend of mine was like, hey, do you know what this flag is? And it was a sun wheel. wheel, you know, like the traditional like pagan sun wheel with a red and black background.
Okay.
And versions of the sun wheel have been used by the National Front. It's an old school like, well, it's been utilized by white power stuff, but it's also a traditional pagan, you know, symbol.
Yeah.
But I wasn't familiar with the flag. Well, it turned out it was the CNP, the Canadian Nationalist Party, right? And the guy who runs it, I think, forget his name's Travis something. He's from fucking Melfort. That's the guy who started the CNP.
Yeah.
A hick who was educated like blocks from my house at the U of S. So this guy, and I've watched his interviews, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's just parroting like right-wing talking points, and he uses the word globalist. Like, come on, settle down, buddy. So yeah, to see these guys at the Freedom Rally, which is anti-masker, so there's this weird overlap between like anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, these alt-right fucking weirdos, the yellow vests, and the anti-immigration, and the anti-Muslims, and the Sons of Odin, and all these fucked up, you know, Proud Boys would probably have been there if they weren't terrorists. And
Yep, exactly.
and it tars the entire movement with a bad brush, right? Same thing with a Black Lives Matter thing, and then you have some people that are
Every
Antifa.
radical out of the area comes out just to cause shit.
Exactly, and Antifa, I think, in general, are well-meaning individuals, but then you end up getting black bloc radicals that show up that say we want to smash shit. We're anarchists or we're nihilists and we're going to smash windows and we're going to loot. Plus, you get the opportunist looters that show up, and they mar the entire movement, right?
Yeah.
So you've got the centrists that actually have something to say, and then you have the radicals that roll in and say, "Yeah, this is what it's all about." On both sides of the thing, I think the fucking communists and Nazis are just two sides of the same radical coin.
Yeah, they're not too terribly far.
No. Gulags or camps, which one do you like more, right? Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're cracking down all over the fucking place, like you were saying, Alberta, Manitoba, no travel, arresting people for these fucking rallies. Here, we're opening up. We're going ahead. We're getting the vaccines out. It's gonna happen. So we're gonna do well.
Yeah,
and we won't do well necessarily COVID number wise, but as far as financially and shit.
Well, we were
Our restaurants will be open before everybody else is.
Well, yeah. Well, Saskatchewan, we're diverse socially. We're distant socially just by the nature of our province. Like, there's a ton of geography and very few people. B and I were just, my partner and I were just at Costco, and there's a walk-by vaccination station.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, you could just go up to the pharmacist, "Hey, can I get my shot?" "Oh, yeah, sure, sit down." And we're like, "Well, I want to know which one it is before we just go sit." Like, "You want to get your shot?" She's like, "Well, not if it's this one. I'm going to wait for that one." And I'm like, "Okay, so we'll wait a little bit, but at least we know we can just go down and sit down and get one," which is nice to do instead of being in a lineup of like 50 to 100 people waiting for a jab, right?
Like Ontario, they're scrambling for them. They don't have enough, you know, and their numbers are going crazy. So, yeah, we're lucky. Small population spread out. You know. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah. Well, you know,
COVID bullshit.
economy, you know, that's the deal. Like, I think in Ontario that it's so congested, and they're struggling to keep their economy going. Can we make a living? It's anxiety causing for me, being a tattoo guy, knowing that at any minute, if something goes south, my entire business gets shut down. And where does that income stream come from? I saw, what was it? One of these protests, this cop was arresting a woman who was literally crying, and she's holding a sign, and she's not wearing a mask. She's at one of the freedom rallies. But she's like, "Look, I've lost my business. I'm losing my home. I can't make money, and I'm here exercising my right to protest these lockdowns. And you're arresting me now, so you're going to add a criminal charge on top of that." That's pretty insane, that we're supposed to be living in a free country defended by charter rights of mobility and freedom of association and freedom of public gathering, but suddenly you're suspending our charter rights, right?
Well, but here's the angle on that, because it's a public health risk, the way they're doing it. They could do it in a more safe way. If that was what they were just concerned about, was my doors being locked and I'm losing my business, you can protest that in a mask. But their thing is, they also don't want to be told that they have to put a piece of cloth over their face, even though it keeps other people
arbitrary.
safe.
That's so arbitrary.
That's it, though, right? But that's the thing. That's what they're attaching it to, and then going, "Oh, and by the way, in my business, I'm here because of this." And it's like, well, no, you're not, because there's another way that you could do this. And I'd like a follow through on that, honestly, because there's lots of businesses I've seen that it's been tough but they've adjusted. They've figured out. They've adapted. Bars
I was
that
just
couldn't be
talking
at
about it this
capacity,
morning.
they figured out how to adjust. You know,
Our tattoo shop, we can't do walk-ins. And some shops are closing because they can't fucking manage to figure out, instead of walk-ins, do you want to offer same-day appointments?
Sure. Right?
Have you figured that one out? No, that's above their head. They can't fucking do the math to finagle. Evolution is not strongest of the fittest. It's strongest, or it's those that are easiest able to adapt.
Right.
That's exactly it. Your environment changes. You need to be able to shift with the environment.
Yep.
If you're too stuck in your ways, you're going to get outmoded and you're going to be extinct. And it doesn't matter if that's on a biological level with organisms or also industries. You know, let's say fossil fuels. We're running out. The market, it's not a positive place for fossil fuels right now. You are slowly becoming outmoded.
Sure.
And new models are coming in. You need to adapt or be extinct. Same thing, well, in my opinion, not everybody's, animal agriculture. Maybe I'm just ahead of the curve and seeing what's coming in 50 years.
Well, sorry, but there's very few people, I think, that picture a vision of the future where we still have industrial
factory farm kind of.
Nobody pictures a vision of the future where that's still happening.
Yeah,
you know
I
what
hope
I mean?
not.
It's just how we transition there.
See, and that's just it. I think it's an outmoded system that we're on the beginning levels of evolution, and if you don't want to adapt your farm, you know, guess what? You won't have a farm. Sorry, that's evolution. And it's funny because so many people on the right that are all about social Darwinism, you know, strongest of the fittest. If you aren't ready to survive, you're going to get moded out. When they start getting outmoded, they cry and moan and fucking bitch because they weren't adaptable.
Yeah.
You know,
but what about traditional values, though?
Yeah.
What about how things were?
Well, how things were, right?
That's it. That's what they're trying to do. It's I want to have what I want, and I wanted to keep it the same, and I want the benefits of the change, but I don't want to have to do it.
Social Darwinism only works when you're on the top.
Yeah.
And once you're not on the top anymore, it's an oppressive system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, well, the cishet white male. You know, it's the tragedy of cishet white male.
Well, and they're seeing it right now, like with these, the guys that were involved in the insurrection, they're all getting their court cases now.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot, like the audio and shit coming to these is just ridiculous. Like these guys are freaking out because they're being treated like how you treat a criminal.
You're treating me like a black person.
That's the one, that guy, that fucking video. Hey, I'm like, you're saying it, dude. Like,
it's out loud right now.
You've been thinking it. Wait, yeah, you're treating me like a black person. But that's what they're experiencing right now is like not the benefit of being able to just say what you fucking want because you're a white man.
Yeah,
and the judge isn't going to listen to you, and they're going to put you in a different Skype room like they're doing with these fucking guys, and they're freaking out and having a temper tantrum. But there's nothing that matters. There's none of that fucking matters. There's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, well, and that's
it's
just
the first time for them.
See, and that is equality, where everybody's being brushed by the same brush.
Yeah.
There's not one brush over here of justice for this guy, one brush of justice for this guy over here. That being said, I also, on a counterpoint, I saw this video recently and it's fucking hilarious. There's like, you know, a black guy and he's being arrested. Basically, the lawyer is like, well, you know, he was running from the police because of the political climate at the time, and you know, they're shooting they're shooting innocent black guys for no reason. And the judge is like, no. They found this guy with a holster on his belt, hiding in the water under a deck or under a dock, hiding from the police after shots were fired at a police in a neighborhood that wasn't his own at 1:48 a.m.
Yeah.
He's not just running from police oppression. Why does he have a holster? Where's his gun?
Yeah.
You know, he's like, so that one doesn't fly here. So there's those people that are trying to use everything as being racism. Or you know, there was another video.
Yeah, there's always fucking people piling on, right?
Shit.
You know, like if there's a nickel to be made from it or some angle to be played, somebody will figure out how to manipulate, and then it fucking sucks because then people, where it's a real issue, it takes away from that.
Well, what was it? Real issues being manipulated for propaganda. Another friend of ours, a common friend of ours, that we still have to get on here, but I think he never will. He works security at the Royal University Hospital. He was featured in a video that kind of started taking off on Facebook. A buddy sent me a link. A big native guy who was fucking pissed off because apparently the doctor cut him and it hurt, right?
Shit.
And the security were surrounding him, trying to get him out of the building, and he's screaming that they're racist and that they hurt him and that this is racism and fuck you, I'm going to knock you the fuck out, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, sorry, sir, you just need to leave the building. My car's not out this side of the building, fuck you, I'm going to go through the hospital. They're like, we just need you to leave. You're racist, you're racist, you're racist. So I got this sent to me. Oh my God, can you believe how racist these guys are being? And I'm like, oh, that's one of my friends. It's a security guard. Then I text him and they say, wow, it's interesting. That video makes us, well, they were still being really polite. This guy's threatening to knock him out. He's pushing his way through the crowd and the security are like, look, you just need to leave. That's all we want. They didn't lay their hands on him or his girl or anything. So the feed, everybody was screaming how racist these security guards were, how they need to be charged, how they needed to be outed by name, how there needs to be a human rights complaint lodged.
Like, sorry, like were they physical with him at all?
No, he was trying to be physical with them, shouldering them out of the way, and they're like, look, you need to leave. And they were going to follow him in a group of like 5 or 6 of these dudes, and he's a head taller than all of them. And when he gets in the elevator, all of them go in the elevator. When then he leaves the elevator, they all come out of the elevator. They weren't trying to force him anywhere. And
that's also, everybody's seen that every time you've ever been in a nightclub.
Yeah, when somebody's being a crazy lunatic.
You get a whole big bunch of group of people, and you surround them, and you get them out of the building.
Well, and they didn't lay a hand on him either.
But
then I messaged this to my buddy. I'm like, hey, you're famous. He's like, yeah, it's weird. That video missed the point where he was threatening to knock the doctor the fuck out for hurting him, and started like throwing stuff around or being a maniac inside with the doctor. So the security got called, and we tried to escort him out because he was being a lunatic. I don't know where race comes into that, because that could be Big Joe Viking. That's doing the same shit, and they would have treated him the exact same. Like, I saw nothing but professionalism.
That taints it, because then you've got cases like in Prince Albert where that woman loses an arm because they give her the dry out shot when she wasn't intoxicated, but they just assume she must be
because she's indigenous.
And she ends up losing her arm. So that again fucks with it, because that is happening. There is racism still happening this fucking minute in this city at hospitals, absolutely. But that's not an example of it.
Yeah, so that's I talk to a lot of like security and police and all of this stuff, and almost every single one, they say it's the first line of defense is you're doing this because you're a racist. No, I'm doing this because you stole something and knocked out the clerk when you tried to leave. That's what you're being charged with. It's not being a brown or red or black guy in a white city. It's nothing like that. But there are also those clerks that'll just intentionally treat somebody like shit because they are a little shade darker than they like. So there's a lot of nuance to this stuff that I think people like to forget. As the two camps go left and right, radical left, radical right, they're like, oh, they're all criminals, or oh, they're all racists, and nobody's really talking about the nuance and the context in the middle, and that frustrates me.
Hey, look, at a bunch of them are criminal racists on either side. There's combinations of all. It's a real cornucopia of pieces of shit on both sides of the argument.
Well, like, what is that? What do they say?
Cornushitacopia?
Well, toxic coping mechanism.
Cornucrapacopia, my bad.
Cornucrap?
My bad, I've been corrected.
Cornucrapacopia. Yeah. Well, and then I see my kids' friends. Like, she's a 13-year-old girl. And what do 13-year-old suburban girls know about all cops being bastards? But they got ACAB, that's an old school punk rock skinhead thing, ACAB, because they got tired of getting beaten up by cops for no reason. 13-year-old suburban girls don't know anything about fucking wait until your house gets robbed, wait till somebody's outside your house with a baseball bat, wait until, something happens that's real ugly. Are you just going to call up your gang to back you up? Because all cops are bastards. What's your avenue of recourse?
Maybe she's got a gang.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. You're gonna call up your non-binary queer gang, and they're gonna cancel that guy with a baseball bat into feeling shame because they've got elevated ethics.
Okay, I'm gonna change topic just slightly here.
No, I want to go on another hate rant.
No, just because that made me laugh a little bit. I'd seen this thing that I written down, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." No, I was just laughing because before I came over here, I'd had some shit pop up on my Facebook, and because of my work going into all these little communities, I try to get on lots of like the different community pages and shit for their Facebook. So a lot of these small town fucking things is popping up all the time.
What about Clem down at the?
Oh fuck, dude! Fuck, you wouldn't believe the beefs that go down on these fucking
on public pages.
Oh fucking right. So, well, some people in this town need to keep their noses out of what goes on down at the flower shop. Or
Terry, pick up your dog shit.
Yeah. Oh fuck, man, it's awesome. Actually, it's quite entertaining. But two of them I seen today made me fucking laugh out loud. The first one was out of Hudson Bay. Actually, they're both out of Hudson Bay. The first one was a warning about a bear being loose in town, and it wasn't even like alarming. It's like, hey, just a heads up, guys. Bit of a bear over by the rink. You may want to keep your eyes peeled. Like doop-de-doo. The weekly bear sighting. And then the other one was this. And again, most of these ones I'm seeing, they're phonetically written. You know what I mean? Like the spelling of it is just horrendous. And the one that really made me laugh was I think it was an elderly woman who was looking for like the Briar Rabbit series of books. You remember those children's books?
Yeah.
The Briar Rabbit books, and she's Briar Rabbit
Uncle
and
Remus.
Tar Baby, and I was like, I don't remember there being a Tar Baby in those books.
I'll bring mine next time. I'll bring it. My mom saved one at her house.
So she's searching for her old just quasi-racist childhood.
absolutely
fucking
racist.
paraphernalia. Man, that just made me laugh. I'm like, yeah, Bear notices, and I'm looking for some racist children literature.
Anybody who wants to look it up, those are the I think Walt Disney.
I remember the Briar Rabbit, and I'm like,
Uncle Remus,
I don't
that's what
remember
that is.
Tar Baby being part of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
But I'm just like, well, there's no way you can paint that in a good light.
There's a time and place. Yeah, those are the Uncle Remus stories, Briar Rabbit, and that's my understanding where
Something
they
about
were.
the fox.
Yeah, there's a kind of like Winnie the
Fascist
Pooh.
fox.
Yeah, fascist fox.
Mussolini mouse.
The ghost is coming for Briar Rabbit.
Mussolini.
Yeah.
I'm here to help, guys.
Well, yeah. Well, Walt Disney was a Nazi. So yeah, that series apparently had to do with old school slave stories, like, and then they animated them.
I didn't realize that at all. It just stuck in my head because I remember being like, I remember being like a thing from like when I was a kid. Briar Rabbit being a thing.
My mom still has my old books when I was a kid. I'll bring it out and
they
look
were
at.
incredibly racist. That
Yeah,
makes
they had
sense.
their moment.
Unreal. I love it. So that makes it even funnier for me because that's the kind of shit I'm seeing. So I guess if anybody out there is bored, you want to liven up your Facebook feed, start following small town buy and sell pages.
Right.
See some gems, or even not even the buy and sells, just the community pages. What's going on in the community? Who's having a tea?
Well, almost every, what was it, CBC or maybe like global news, indigenous issues, like on their websites, they've had to shut down the comment section because of the level of racism that gets dumped on there, like kill them all, shoot them, like all of that stuff, like stay out of our cities, let's just burn them. And
it's 2021.
yeah, 2021,
and
and
much
this
more in
is
the fucking future.
Mississippi KKK talk, and it's just these people think they're anonymous, and
And what is the end game though? Like, is it just to fucking troll? Is that just what it is? It's just to get a rise, or like, do they think that they're being some sort of fucking race warrior when they do that, or they're gonna like? I just don't get that anonymous trolly fucking bullshit.
I don't know. It's just
You
really
get a rise out of it.
Well, you have so many different levels when it comes to racism. You've got that like I've got nothing and I'm angry at the world, so I'm going to blame somebody else attitude, which I see a lot. Those are the types that are going to join up like with like the Sons of Odin, and we're going to keep our streets clean of the Muslims. Like, no, you're not. You're just a bunch of racists hanging out, high fiving each other with homemade tattoos and doing like your bro down, like all that wrestling stuff. Like that's who are we? Because we actually are kind of cut from that cloth. I hate to say it.
Yeah,
but
it calls it like it sees it.
Then you've got what did the Marx call them? The petite bourgeoisie, where it's like the small business owners and like the upper middle class that just kind of have that luxury they don't want to give up, and they look at the other.
They probably
people.
got a place to lake and a nice boat.
Yeah, they look at the other people as potential criminals that are going to come and take from them, right?
Exactly.
And then I think you've got the upper class racism that is definitely believes in the inherent difference between ethnicities,
and that's that country club level shit.
Yeah.
Sir, what's your last name?
Yeah,
Briarwitz.
Yeah, exactly.
Briar Rabbit, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Well, the Briarwitzes are allowed usually, but the Malcolms and the
they're okay, fine.
Yeah.
They're letting the globalists in. Are
yeah,
they?
usually.
Actually, what? I watched a fucking
Epsteins,
awesome. Yeah, exactly. I watched the excellent Golden Girls about that the other day, where Dorothy was tight with this like highfalutin woman, and they were going to go to the club, and then they find out that Sophia's date's Jewish and he can't go to the club, and she's all like, "Fuck that noise."
Oh, okay. So
here we go.
Tar Baby,
That
a
guy's giving
folk
us some
tale
fucking
about
intel.
food rights, is rooted in equalities of slavery. Yeah. The Tar Baby story in which Briar Rabbit outwits Briar Fox is a classic trickster folk tale. But like all fables, it's double-barreled affair with entertainment firing in tandem with a serious message. Man, you had to give me something with big words. All right. The question story addresses a fundamental one. Who controls access to food? And I think they're taking it a bit far right there. I don't think it's... it's just like, I want something. You can't have it. This is the class struggle. The eternal class struggle between the proletariat and... I don't buy that. But, the Tar Baby and Briar Rabbit. And, what was the fox guy's name?
Briar Fox also,
Briar
which I
Fox,
find very unimaginative. You have lots of opportunity there for
I couldn't call
anything.
him Jake.
Yeah?
Jake the Fox. Well, yeah. What were we just talking about right before that? And the small town racism. That basically we're living in the Mississippi of the 60s, and it's in the middle of Canada. 2021.
Right.
Small towns. That's just it. You roll into the wrong small town, they look you up and down, and you're like, you're not local, are you? And God forbid you're a little brown or you're a little like, Mm-hmm. Some communities are like that. You go to Duck Lake, everybody's everybody, right? Because there's so many reserves around. But you go to Provost, Alberta, it's a different story, right?
It's getting better though.
I don't know. I haven't been out there. You wouldn't see that, right?
I'd see. I'd see. I feel like it's getting better. It's getting a lot more diverse in small towns. There's actually quite a large Filipino community in Saskatchewan. I don't think a lot of people know about outside of the major centers. Like you go into many smaller areas and lots of fucking Filipino people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think a lot of that's going away because you're working alongside people. That all that shit disappears.
It should. You know, I got a friend that works in a bank, and the bank has very specific hiring quotas now. Like it's because it's a big corporation, they're trying to stay on the abreast with the changing culture. So they've got minimum. When she found this interesting, they've got minimum Spanish quota, minimum Asians quota, minimum Muslim quota, and she's like, so what happens if you live in a community with no Spanish or no genderqueer people? What do you do? Who do you hire? You have to hire who's local. But you're supposed to have a minimum amount of, LGBTQ and so she comes back with a lot of interesting stuff, like Indian people she works with, Muslim people she works with, and she asks honest questions. And her experience has been that the people she works with are very happy and forthcoming with information about their culture because they're happy that somebody local gives a shit, and that's how you create a melting pot.
Well, they're probably as like everybody is proud of their shit. I love to show my shit off. So yeah, why not get a chance to? And yeah, have somebody not come at it with, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
No, that's good shit, man. I like that because it's like I said, the closer proximity. Like sometimes people like that. Oh, fucking, you work with somebody all the time, you learn to hate them. Yeah, but some people aren't dickheads, and then they learn how to get along. Because like that kind of shit, you're just a dickhead, Well,
that being
it
said,
doesn't matter what color the person is, you're just going to be a dickhead.
Apparently, Ramadan just finished, and that's I'm pretty sure it's a month-long fast for the Islamic people. From I think it is sun up till sundown. No, it might be different, but either way, it's a month-long fast, I think, and it's a very sacred thing. And in right now in Jerusalem, media isn't covering this. Imagine why. Anyways, I'll get to that. 6 people control all the major media conglomerates that you're.
Well, actually, I did see a thing about shit going down in Israel today.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. What is it? The Damascus Gates is one of the oldest holy sites in I guess, Abrahamism. And the Muslims have, I think it's called the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's the third holiest site in Islam, right? And they've created this mosque in Palestine, and it's the third holiest area. Well, the Israeli officials have recently named Damascus Gates after they renamed the entire area after 2 Israeli police that were killed in a standoff. So, and then they raided the mosque, shooting stun grenades and rubber bullets at people praying and protesting to keep their mosque, this holy place. Mm-hmm. Now, when the Palestinians started protesting this, ultra right-wing Jewish Zionist settlers created mobs to go in and beat them, literally driving their cars into and over protesters. And the Israeli occupation police are defending the right-wing imperialists. Like this is colonization happening before our eyes. They're taking Palestinian houses. It's insane. And they choreographed this attack, this storming of this mosque to coincide with the end of Ramadan, like their holiest month, which is fucking insane. But nobody's really talking about it to that degree. They're saying, oh yeah, some protesters threw rocks at the police, so the police moved in and totally tear gassed or stun grenade a clinic.
And that's the narrative that the Israeli-owned media would absolutely be fucking pushing, for sure.
Not only the Israeli-owned media
have the global reach that Israel does.
Well, I think a lot of people in the West forget that almost, unless you're looking stuff up at Al Jazeera, almost every media that we watch is owned by 6 companies, right? 6 umbrella companies. Mm-hmm. And I think 4 out of the 6 are Jewish guys. One is Rupert Murdoch, who's obviously been very Zionist the whole time. He's very in support of an Israeli state. And one is Sony, which is a Japanese, so they're probably out of the league, right? So the mainstream media won't really give the Palestinian idea on what's happening there, where they're just consistently, we're looking at an imposing, better armed force pushing people out of their own land. It's indigenous people and an imposing force. They have support of Western countries in the form of money, in military equipment, bulldozers, all that stuff against rock-throwing people. that have been disarmed, kept in camps,
and
pushed.
keep getting seated with actual terrorists that people keep putting in there to go, hey, look, there's terrorists in there. Like you can do that lots of these places. You start seeing something stabilize itself, and it's like, no, throw some actual terrorists in there, and then they can do whatever they're going to do, and then people can go, look, they're all terrorists in there.
So I'm going to put something on the table to consider that's really probably going to be challenging, maybe politically incorrect, maybe even incendiary.
Uh-oh.
What is terrorism but the warfare of the poor? Right?
Well,
Warfare is terrorism of the rich. You can go in, you can drone people with, your $1 million drone out of the sky. They're just sitting at a funeral, and boom, the entire funeral blows up for one person that did something wrong at that funeral. You just killed 30, 40 people, but hey, you got your tactical target.
Yeah.
That's warfare. But when a guy walks in with something strapped to his chest for a tactical target, going into, a military checkpoint, and he dies in that thing because he's done it himself, it's terrorism. Terrorism is the warfare of the poor. Warfare is the terrorism of the rich. And people are forgetting this all the time. How can you be funneling a huge amount of money to a military-industrial complex in the Middle East and consider yourself not part of that war when 9/11 happens? I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And that's a narrative being put forward saying, we're the innocent victims of terrorism.
Well,
no, you are the
fucking right,
consequence
man.
of a tactical thing because you are the financiers of what's happening over there.
Yeah.
And on top of your military-industrial complex going over there and just raping them for their natural resources. We want your oil. We want your poppy fields. We want whatever, right? So, yeah, it's crazy. And that really bugs me, especially in a place where they're trying to get all the kids to join up. You can buy video games to recruit. You like playing Call of Duty? Join the army. You can do this in real life, and we're living in some fucked up times. So I'm really, there's a saying in Judaism, and it's Yerida something Aliyah. I forget what it looks up, or I forget the official Yiddish or Hebrew saying, but it's Yerida Aliyah or something like that, and that is moving away from Israel in order to become more holy, right? So the idea in Judaism of reaching Israel is the idea of the individual connecting with God, your personal relationship with your higher power, of holiness, of divinity, of compassion and love, right? That's Aliyah, right? Is rising up towards Israel. So Israel, on a spiritual level, is a place of holiness and unification with God. Now, Yerida is the descent away from God, which is considered kind of like a bad thing. You're moving away towards selfishness, towards iniquity, whatever. Now, in a lot of Jewish kind of worldview, moving to Israel physically is a holy act. Because you are doing that.
Everybody kind of does that pilgrimage.
Yeah, it's a pilgrimage as an action to represent that spiritual ascension towards God, right? But then there's this other thing, which is the Aliyah, which is moving away from Israel. Like, it's called going down. That's what it actually literally means, is going down away from this holy site. But wouldn't we think when people are being murdered over their versions of God, and like, I have a right to this land and you don't have a right to this land, to me, I think it would be more holy to move away.
Yeah.
And let people live in peace, because isn't that the principle of holiness?
Well, and it's and holding these holy lands and these holy temples and all that shit in such high regard that you are going to fucking do physical harm to other human beings. That can't be part of the purpose of that. That can't be the fucking.
It's not God's will,
sure
for lack of a better word,
right?
Yeah,
sure seems like it's the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the process of designing a graphic, and it's a three-headed dragon, and it's of Abrahamism, right? You got this God of Abraham.
Jesus Christ, Pat, you're gonna get us put in a fucking watch list. Like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure they're against a lot of this stuff, but they sure talk about it a lot.
Yeah,
it's got
right.
a whole new series of T-shirts for these guys. It's like the globalist dragon.
Well, no, it's of Abrahamism across the board, because the three heads would be Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Sure. Yes.
And these are like the three most imposing, well, not necessarily Judaism, but like the three most colonial imposing belief systems. They take over, they want to expand. They all come from a root of we are God's chosen people and everybody else is secondary. And each of the heads would be biting at each other.
Sure.
And where is that, how's that holy at all?
Well, it's all the same God, right?
It should be.
It's just all different prophets.
Yeah.
It's like the humans that heard this and told us that are different, but it's all the same guy.
So
Better fight about that.
Who along the line push the narrative that we are supreme to everybody else. And that, I think, is where the problem is. Like, each one believes they're God's chosen people, but they're only there, only that head.
Well, they've all figured that, and then tried to figure out how to monetize it. Because it's not just like, hey, I'm God's chosen children. Okay, cool. I can just be that and exist and try to spread that word, and I'll go out and try and help everybody else become that. No. How do I control though? Like, how do I get wealth?
How can I get something out of this deal?
An empire. There needs to be an empire behind this. It can't just be word and love going out across the land. We got to build fucking mosques and churches and these massive fucking things. We got to do that. We got to get money.
I was talking about this at lunch, that I really believe that Jesus was a pagan, that Jesus pushed a more naturalist, the real teachings of Jesus, not necessarily the manipulated King James interpretation or the Roman interpretation, which obviously would be slanted towards supporting a monarchy or the Roman Empire, right? Like, but the real guy, Jesus, who's walking around changing the old school Judaism, because that's what the Pharisees were. They were the old school, like, Jewish rabbis. He was walking around with a new revamped version of the philosophy. But 1,000 years later, when they start, or 500 years later, when the Romans get a hold of it, and they want to make it so, hey, you're supposed to pay your taxes. He's the head of the family. The church controls, because you have the Roman political system plus the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church is very much going to support the political system. So you have the power and the propaganda, basically. So we can control the hearts and minds with this thing. With propaganda, the word is actually rooted in the propagare, the area of the Catholic Church, which was for propagating the belief system. So you have the hearts and minds is the Catholic Church twisting the actual message of 140 or 130 books that were written about Jesus and the life of Jesus that could have been put in the Bible, that were whittled down to 40, right? That were supporting a specific narrative. And then that narrative was used to conquer and to suppress indigenous people, and the colonization, the Crusades, the papal bulls, all of that expansion, that colonial expansion, was all due to Christianity. Now, at the same time, in Islam, they would expand and they would roll into a place and say, hey, guess what? Any of the landowners that want to convert to Islam, we're going to give you great taxes. We're going to give you financial incentive to convert to Islam, and you can take part in our trade routes, but if you don't, we're going to war.
Yeah.
So we're going to reward you if you do something, and we're going to punish you severely if you don't.
Well, and the concept of colonialism without having to physically take the land. Like,
yes.
No, we want to work with you. We want to be in charge. We want to control. We want you to use our control systems of money, but you can still keep your shit. You still get to do your thing. You just got to pledge allegiance to us and use our money system.
And then there's the element of Judaism, which was largely a nomadic people, a people with no land. And what they said with Palestine is, we're taking a land with no people and giving it to a people with no land. Except they neglect the fact that there was people on that land. It was Palestine. It wasn't it's not like you just bought some apartments. No, you bought the city, right? Like, or you slowly took over the city and bought bulldozers to kick people out of the places. So that is like a very insular group of people that kind of realized what it's like to be on the outskirts. So they said, fine, we're only going to really do business with us a lot. We're going to help our own tribe, our own people, the people of Judah, really do well. We're going to establish our own segregated space. So you can't kick us out of Israel, because we've been kicked out of everywhere in the world, like 100 countries or something like that. It's been ridiculous. So you have an oppressed people that finally get to fight back, and look what happens. They become colonists. They become imperialists. So, yeah, right?
Right? How many times have we seen this through every fucking thing we've talked about? Oppression, eventually you get that fucking, I get that fucking thing, and now I'm going to oppress.
Yeah, and so, give me the gun. Ooh, we're ever going to use that gun, right?
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You're going to regret this.
So look at Abrahamism as being this weird, the three-headed dragon, it's about, it wants to conquer, it wants to own, it's vying for control, while all the pagan, indigenous, pre-colonial cultures and knowledge were destroyed. The libraries of Alexandria, the Library of Alexandria destroyed. Like, all the ancient cultures were considered heretical to the expanding faith, right? At one time, I forget what it was, the golden years of Islam, it was different because they would collect the world information and incorporate it into the transition of understanding of God or their perception of God. They're like, well, this philosophy talks about God this way, and they would look at that with respect. And what the new version is a very rigid and hard version of Islam, as opposed to the original Enlightenment Islam, right? There's so many different schools, but the rigid, hard ones are what you see happening in Iran. You know, in the 70s, you see women wearing kind of Western clothes, their hair down, and now it's very rigid.
Well,
you
that's
know?
what people don't realize, I think, a lot of times about the Middle East is that there was it was at that time, fashion and stuff was very Western and what we consider to be modern. The slant towards more extremism came in later. It wasn't like it was always, no, we've maintained this way of living in these clothes and shit for hundreds or thousands of years. It was like, no, this was transitioning like the rest of the world was. And then there was a group that got into power and said, no, we're really going to push this much more stringent fucking agenda, an adherence to biblical law.
Fundamentalism.
Yes. Yeah.
Every word is sacred, that kind of idea. Well, Islamic culture created arithmetic, algebra, right? Alphabet. Like these are all like Islamic creations. They had architecture and art that was so far above what was happening in Europe at a similar time. When the Crusaders went down there, they were confronted by metallurgy that they'd never encountered before. You guys make swords how?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. And well, what they say is that when the Templars went down there as part of the Crusades, you know, they set up a banking system where you can deposit money here and you can withdraw it down there. And so the pilgrims and those traveling could go down to the Holy Land and they wouldn't have to get robbed. They didn't have anything. So you could give your money to the Templars here and you pick it up down there. But the Templars, when they were down in the Middle East, the story goes that they encountered new ways of thinking, new ways of worship, new ways of understanding their relationship with God. Because the Templars were basically warrior monks, right? Like you had to enter a holy order, you had to give up all of your personal belongings, you entered this knighthood, and you were holy knights, and you went down, and when the Crusades were going on fighting to expand the Holy Land south, and the Muslims are like, no, you're not bringing your shit down here, but they interacted with people. So the story is that the Templars found something down there. Some people say it's the Ark of the Covenant, and they brought it back to Europe and they hid it. Some people say it's the Holy Grail. Some people say it's just other secret knowledge about psychology and about energy work and pranayama and all that other stuff. But either way, they brought back information that was taboo to the structures at, you know, the dominant structures in, I guess it would be Roman Catholic Europe. And that's one of the major reasons, other than the King of France owing them a ridiculous amount of money. But that's one of the major reasons they were excommunicated and executed and turned into, what would you call it? Underground, black market, blacklisted group. The Templars were eliminated because of whatever they brought back from the Holy Land, like Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
And but this is another link to that, where a lot of the Templar information got put underground into the mystery schools, is what they're called. The secret societies, that energy work, the alchemy, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, and stuff like that. So if you study those systems of belief, like the Masonic belief systems, the Rosicrucians, the Ordo Templar Orientalis, these are supposedly the mystery schools that hid the Templar information that they brought back from the Holy Land that the Catholics considered like forbidden knowledge. It's witchcraft. It's horrible. You're not supposed to learn that. Otherwise, you're a heretic. You're going to get burned at the stake. That's part of the Inquisition. And so it's very interesting little story surrounding all of that stuff. I think Islam, once upon a time, was one of the most advanced religions in the world because they were incorporating all the knowledge they had into one system, or that you were allowed to have that discourse.
Like the fantastical stories they have of like in the East of Vimanas and shit like that.
Oh, what? I'm not familiar.
Like flying machines.
Oh, yeah,
and, like
yeah.
in Hindu, they've got like these fucking what would you call them? Like
chariots of the gods.
It's almost like a manual for building them. Like they have schematics. They have like, you know, how this part goes with that and what they would do and how they would function, and that they've got, you know, paintings of these sky battles where they're shooting lightning bolts back and forth at each other, and you know, and supposedly that something happened. You know what I mean? Like that something went down that they thought was God shooting lightning bolts at each other. Right?
I've seen literal interpretations of that stuff where they found what's it called? Areas of the desert where the sand has been transformed to glass, and it's only like a very, very hot temperature that
Yeah,
would
like
ever
nuclear,
be able to,
yeah.
that would ever be able to turn that sand to glass, which would be pretty crazy. But you never know. Like, history has been
lost technology,
forgotten.
right?
Lost
like
tech,
I mean,
right?
even in Egypt, they found those clay batteries. You know, they're a clay pot
Yeah.
with the proper chemicals in it and the right acidity and shit, and it generates electricity, and what they call them, Baghdad battery. It doesn't even make sense to have that.
Baghdad
if
battery.
Because that's where they found it, right?
Sounds
I know, right? It
sounds a little
like,
racist, you know, the China flew the Baghdad
I'm
battery.
giving them the old Baghdad battery over here.
Ooh, yeah.
And,
That's what was happening in Jerusalem.
the
then,
assault in Baghdad battery. Yeah, right. But yeah, then it sparks the question. You're like, well, why though? Why would you need to build a battery at all? Why would you need to generate electricity?
I remember, I saw that.
Before
That's pretty
shit
crazy.
ran on electricity, right? You know, like what used to have for that. So yeah, I think there's lots of that stuff that's been. Well, I mean, fucking Alexandria. That's a great example. You know, like massive amounts of fucking knowledge instantly blinked out.
And pushing Europe into the Dark Ages.
Yes.
Like you for 500 years, they got shoved into a rudimentary, superstitious era where like everything was evil spirits and like you obey or you die.
And
right?
I think people think this has all been linear. You know, it's like, no, we kind of didn't believe in spirits so much anymore, and we kind of use science more. It's like, no, we got enlightened, shit was going good. Then it was like, no, that's not working out. We can't control everybody, having everybody fucking enlightened. Get rid of the information,
Yes.
shut down history. Dark ages it is, you know, and it's not the only time. You know,
And
like,
at
there's
any
cycles
time
of
that shit
kind
can
of shit.
happen again. When
Yeah.
you talk about Handmaid's Tale, right? When we talk about pushing this weird Christian dogma into American politics, or watching that attitude come north of the border with these right-wing
in Saskatchewan,
politicians.
you see it lots.
Yes, they want that Christian law where like homosexual marriage is forbidden, abortion rights are forbidden. All of this, we don't want other cultures
and they want
intermingling with
They want
ours.
it on paper, though. By the way, they themselves still want access to these things. They themselves still want to be able to get abortions for their mistresses, and they still want to have gay lovers, and they still want to do those things. They just want to make sure that they can control who does it and punish those that they want to. It's just like weed laws, right? You know, like they're on the paper, they're on the boards for everybody. Somebody it's a fine, somebody it's a jail time.
Yes.
Guess how that's decided?
Well, even now, the people that are running those weed stores, you need a lot of money to get into the weed business.
Oh, sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
To have a legitimate weed business. Where once upon a time, a kid in the hood that could get fronted a sack could make rent, maybe, if he worked his ass off.
Yeah,
You know,
show some initiative, get out there.
Yeah,
and hustle,
exactly, but that's
manage your
crime.
books appropriately.
but
Yeah.
that's crime.
Yeah.
You know, if the RCMP invested in a legal weed shop because he had advanced information on what was going to be legal, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
capitalism.
Did any of that happen? Hey,
No,
it's
no.
like, fuck, I don't know how many times I've heard that. XRCMP gets into weed business.
Yeah,
It's like,
if you know
son
their
of
name,
bitches!
if you know their name, email it to us. We'll out them. No,
Yeah,
just joking.
yeah, no,
We
it's
won't.
and I mean, to me, it's looking at positive spin. That's a good thing. Somebody who's seen, you know, the arguments being made for keeping people locked up went, nah. This is still something I need to be in. But at the same time, you were still fucking at least giving people tickets and locking people up for the shit that you're making money off
Well,
now.
exactly. Well, okay, this is an interesting debate because I had that feeling too. Okay, this is the difference between my logic side and my feeling side. My feeling side is, hey man, if you can make a bank off of like selling weed to people on the street, release the fucking kids you put in jail for weed. Now, my logic side, and it's funny because I debated from the feeling side with my buddy who's kind of right wing. My logic side, he clued me in. He's like, but it was illegal at the time. This was on the law books, and no matter what the law was, you chose to break the law when it was the law.
That argument works to some degree, but you look at segregation laws, right? Them shits needed to be broken so that people could fucking get them overturned, right?
So, yeah.
So then that's the thing.
Not
It's
that
like
we're advocating crime.
but you know, an unjust law, right? And should you follow an unjust law? You know,
Okay.
right? Should you support those that that also enforce it?
Yes, I think you need to in order to have a functional society. Because if everybody's personal cause against unjust laws, if we were allowed to just go out and set fire to meat manufacturing, to block meat trucks,
it's a slippery slope, right?
spike forests, you know, that we think are going to get
You can
cut
absolutely
down.
argue that's just from your point of view. How many millions of lives are you saving by doing that,
so
right?
everybody's got a personal cause, and how many people's causes? There are routes to go through in order to have this stuff happen. But the other side of that, the counterpoint. So okay, there are proper channels to go through to change the system. But that system is also controlled by immense amounts of money being invested in order to bribe their way and
Yeah.
to line the pockets of those that make the laws, so the laws don't change.
Yep.
Now, that's just it. Shutting down meat factories forcibly because it's unethical and it should be illegal to some. Spiking forests with like big spikes down the middle of the trees so the huge chainsaws break and go flying into like the machines that are cutting them down. That's ethical to some because you're saving the forest. It's totally illegal.
Yeah.
Whatever, selling crack because you're broke.
right? It's a spectrum, right? Yeah, it's a whole spectrum of what's right and what's wrong. Yeah.
So if
I get
alcohol, if somebody can own a booze store and ruin lives through addiction and wife beating and drunk driving, how is that less of problematic to society? Oh, and the medical side, of
sure.
that. How's that less problematic than a coke dealer who's selling to people at the club?
Yeah.
Straight up, like, hey, you're coming to the club, you want some powder? Hey, you dance a little harder for a few hours, you go home, fuck your brains out and fall asleep. Wake up, maybe you didn't get that good of sleep. Which one is the worst crime? Alcohol, tobacco, lottery, the same addictive tendencies. But if the proceeds filter to the state, it's like the status quo accepts it.
Yep.
Right. But
what's socially acceptable for the middle class?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are acceptable addictions.
Yep.
But once if you brew at home, or you gamble of your own accord, you set up a poker room, well, those ones, the proceeds don't filter to the state, so the status quo rejects it.
You own a winery, you're upper class. Hey, you own a still, you're a fucking hillbilly.
You're a hillbilly. and
I'm making myself with my hands, hillbilly. I pay somebody else to do it for me. Ooh.
Yeah. You've got your sifter, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to a jug. And the difference is the percentage of alcohol. And that's the most arbitrary thing in the world. Like, you can do beer or wine, but you can't do moonshine.
Yeah.
You can grow 4 plants, 5, you're a criminal. If you grow a plant for somebody else, you're a criminal. So we're living in some fucking strange times, and the people that are actually making the laws are making money off of keeping the laws in the favor of the alcohol companies, the tobacco companies, the government approved gambling. All of those, it's a monopoly. They're the cartels. Pharmaceuticals, a perfect example,
rates, yeah.
right? As long as those pharmaceutical reps can lobby the politicians in order to keep the laws on the books that they're the only ones allowed to be selling downers and uppers. Mm-hmm. If you do it on the street, you're a criminal. If you do it from an office in Toronto, oh yeah, it's totally legit.
Well, and like you said with the fucking poppy seeds in Afghanistan, you're feeding a military-industrial complex also to then feed that fucking drug cartel back home, and then you can also feed your fucking your medical system with all these drug-addicted people that you have to pump into fucking treatment centers and all that kind of shit because everybody's on opioids and everybody's got to deal with it. So you can figure out how to make money off every single aspect of that.
So there's this. And it's so closely linked with banking and cartels and organized crime and politicians. They're all in hand together. If you watch that Seaspiracy documentary, they're talking about the overfishing and the black fishing and of dolphins and with the tuna and all of this and whale fishery, especially Japanese whale fishery is the one that they were talking about, and how closely linked with organized crime in Japan it is. Sure. Because you need to have a black market person in order to offset, your overfishing. You're trying to sell it. You need pockets need to be greased. You need to be putting money in the wrong pockets, and you need that infrastructure of organized crime to do that because the government can't officially approve of it. It's still happening, and the government profits, and the businesses profit, and the organized crime profits. Same thing with human trafficking companies or countries.
Do they talk about? I haven't seen that, but do they talk about that much in that Seaspiracy about the human trafficking? Because that's
not human trafficking. They talk about it how the black market in the fish and the fisheries and the whale fishing specifically, but it's the same deal.
Well, no, but I was going to say because I know with lots of that too. That's how they get their crew. Is they'll take these island kids.
They did,
and they'll say, hey, we're gonna pay you, and we'll get out there, we'll get you working. Don't worry about it. And they just steal these people's kids.
Yeah, tie slavery.
Yeah, once you're on the boat, that's it.
Well,
tie you up
exactly.
when we come into port, shit like that.
Straight up, like they did talk about that. Where these people are from Thailand. They say, hey, we're going to give you a great job. You're going to be a fisherman. They get there, they're put in cages, they're forced to work, or they get shot and dumped overboard, and they get registered as being an accident.
Yeah.
So this is legitimate human trafficking to support The
slavery, the fish fucking.
Usually the first world greed for fish.
Well, that's what's driving these. Who's got money, right? Gangsters want money, and first world people have money, and highfalutin first world people have money. So if you can get things that highfalutin first people want,
shark fin or all of that other stuff, poaching, it's
the
so
shit
interlocked.
you can't get. Yeah.
So I was talking with my partner about this, and this goes back to your idea of like, if you don't want to participate in these systems anymore, what can you do? You can't change the system by getting rich, because you're right in it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You've said be poor before, and I really like that. Like,
yeah, that's one way. Yeah, be poor, disengage.
I'm increasingly of the
Scavenge.
Yeah. Dumpster dive.
Don't be the original recipient of anything. You know?
Yeah, dumpster dive, wear used clothing, whatever. There's tons of options, but like I'm more and more as I go on of the opinion that one of the best strategies we can is to withdraw our participation in the systems that we don't support.
Yep. When you can, right?
Yeah. Like, try to do more energy exchange with people that if you can, you know, hey, I don't have a gym membership, but I have a yoga instructor, and that yoga instructor needs carpentry, and I'm a carpenter.
Yep.
Hey, can we trade?
Yep.
And then I get my exercise training from you, and you get some carpentry from me, and everybody wins, and it's an energy exchange. That's wicked, because you're taking the banks out of it, you're taking capital out of it, and you're still getting a really beneficial
the thing you
deal.
wanted.
Yeah,
right?
a beneficial deal.
The thing that you would work for to get the money to pay for.
I know a farmer that needs tattoos. Can I trade you some produce in exchange for a tattoo every month, an hour of tattooing for a bag of groceries every 2 weeks?
Right.
Can we do something like that?
Right.
So I think really withdrawing our support of these systems and taking a step back, not even a boycott, but because you're not trying to convince anybody else.
Disengage when you can.
Yeah, don't be
Right.
involved with the banking system so much. Don't
Yep.
be involved with like the products that you don't support. And I think that's the big one.
You don't want to use fossil fuels. Don't use them when you can.
Yeah.
When you have to take the bus or you have to drive or you have to fucking then you do, and you do it begrudgingly. And you try and do it in the best way you can.
Walk, bike.
Yes.
You can hike in the
Right.
snow if you live close enough to where you work.
Yep.
I got a friend, he's a native guy, and he hikes all year. And he goes by the river in -40. He'll just pack himself up like, I guess like the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man and walk with his onesie down by the river. But he says that it keeps him in touch with what's going on, and like he's got that connection to nature. But if you could take a step back from those systems that you don't support so much, then at least you're not participating.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's
You're not
one of the
fixing
biggest
it,
things.
but you're not giving them something. They're not doing it with your fucking money or your time or your physical energy, like you said.
Well, one of the other projects that I revamped lately, the Unrest Initiative thing, getting all the coaches on board and getting people to sign up, it really wasn't working. So we launched a new website, which is whatistheprogram.com, which basically just tells people the simple stuff that we were doing with Unrest Initiative, but then we just say, here it is, go do it.
Yeah.
We're not going to hold your hands. You're not going to call us up for training. Just go do it. If you don't want to be involved with this stuff, you just take a step back from it. There you go. And I really would support people from just relying less on the system. That's my end goal, is to get off grid, to go live self-sufficiently, ideally have a functional farm enough that I don't.
And that was mine also for a long time, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I kind of want to just be part of something that's doing that. Instead of having to fucking do it on my own or have to build my own version of the world. It's really goddamn tough, and you can do it. But I would rather be part of something that's what everybody in the community is getting. We're all using solar energy. We're all using wind. We're all using that. And because I think it's almost easier to do, because we can ourselves adjust. It's just it's so much on you when you're in a neighborhood that we're all going solar, and this is what the neighborhood's doing.
Food, not lawns.
It costs less. You know what I mean? There's all the benefits you get to doing anything in fucking bulk. Plus, then if you're already kind of taking care of that as a community, then you can do maybe I'm going to compost also. I wasn't doing that before, or maybe I'm these other little steps that you can personally do. It takes some of the pressure off you.
Well, you think about that. Like for a while, I wanted to build the lawn boxes, the food boxes, or you grow a garden instead of a lawn.
Yep.
What would be your lawn? You put the same amount of effort you would into tending your lawn. You just put it into growing food.
Yep.
If 10 families on your block did that, how many free food places could you have? You drive by, you need something, get a bag. Or because if you really need to steal food from my front lawn, you need it more than me. Right? There's that. But imagine if your entire neighborhood decided each of us is going to grow one or two things in our lawn, and then we all get together every Sunday and we do a trade.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how crazy is that we don't use this French aristocratic fucking indoctrination of having a lawn, you know? Because that's what the royalty did. They had these like tightly manicured little plants.
Open green spaces.
Yeah, that's what we need. No, that's golf bullshit.
Yeah.
What we need is food.
Yeah.
What we need is biodiversity and not relying on these huge monocrops to feed us, right?
Well, and just imagine the fucking sense of community there'd be if everybody had, or even, not even everybody, say half had fucking front yard gardens, and there was farmer's market every week that you can bring your shit down to, and you can, like you said, trade and barter and sell or whatever, and you'd get to know everybody. It would be such a different way of living now where everybody's very fucking cut off.
Or, God forbid, there's free food boxes down in the hood, and if you have too many tomatoes, you just go dump it.
Right.
When you need it, you pick it up, take it away. Same thing, we were talking about the books boxes, the free book boxes. You know, you want some information, you want a hobby, you want something to read, here, just go to the free book box, you know.
Those have been very popular. I see them continue to pop up all over the
and I
place.
think that's a really, really good thing. I'd like to see more of them, and stuff like that. So I'd really like to see our culture get more towards community, you know, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Like, is this snowball rolling and it's too far? But I guess as long as conversations are like this are happening and getting out to at least one or two people, you know, that's our entire viewership or listeners. One or two of you out
let's
there.
hope.
Yeah.
Oh, God, pleplease. We should probably get fucking just about wrapping this up. I did have one other story I wanted to tell you. It was just a short one, but I've been trying to stay limber lately, and I had it really come into effect the other day. I was taking the dogs for a walk, and I got for anybody listening, I got 2 Chihuahuas, and I'm just woke up first thing in the morning, taking the dogs out, and I don't even really know what's going on, and all of a sudden I just sense something coming at me, and I look, and there's these 2 huge brindle boxers or something,
bully breed,
and real looking expensive looking purebred kind of fucking dogs. And I have not had a good experience with expensive looking purebred kind of dogs, especially any of them over 50, 60 pounds, and my little tiny dogs, because a lot of times they just, even if they're not vicious, even if they're not the grab you and give you a swing kind of breed, just the trampling that happens with these big dogs and my tiny dogs,
size,
right? Exactly. They don't know. So I'm fucking holy fuck, and I'm getting tangled up. Mine are freaking out, spinning around me, and these 2 dogs are going around trying to get at us, and I kicked both of them as hard as I can possibly kick a dog in the ass, and I'm just talking meat on the side of the ass. I didn't kick it in the head or the ribs or nothing. And this is how dumb these dogs were. They even a kick in the ass wasn't enough for them to go, and they were just still I'm right here, and nothing really happened. But I was still fucking a little freaked out because now I got to fucking fist fight these dogs. And I fucking hammered that one really hard. But this guy comes right around right away to come pick him up, and then it's kind of doesn't say anything. He just jumps out of his fucking vehicle, grabs the dogs real quick,
they were
gets
off
in.
Leash, eh?
Oh fuck yeah! They were just ripping around the neighborhood, and I'm on leash, with my fucking Chihuahuas, tangled up with them.
Not the bully
so then he gets in and and then he rolls his window down and he's like, oh yeah, they aren't really my dogs. And I'm like, well, what the fuck, man? I just about kicked the shit out of those things. I'm a little worked up about this. He's like, oh, you should take a deep breath. And I just get the fuck out of here.
You're next, bro.
Whatever, man. It peels out. I'm like, well, you should take a deep breath. Are you fist fucking me right now? I was just trying to decide whether or not I had to fight these fucking dogs. And I felt bad because I don't want to kick no dog. But I'd kick a dog in the ass all fucking day. By anybody, if anybody's listening, if you ever want a dog to leave you alone, generally speaking, you kick them in the asshole, right into the asshole or the balls, and they'll fuck right off. And that's what I didn't do with these. I held back even because I was like, I know that's gonna hurt, and it'll definitely. That's your last case.
Really injure
I really want you gone. I'll kick you in the asshole. So a kick in the ass sometimes will just get a dog to go okay, I gotta get the fuck out. If it's I'm talking big heavy dog. You know what I mean? I'm talking 50, 60 pounds or heavier. A kick in the ass ain't gonna break nothing, but it'll make him fucking go, holy fuck, I gotta get out of here.
You can finger flick a Chihuahua in the asshole.
I use a stern voice, and they'll fall over. You know what I mean? They'll be barking at someone, and I'll go, holy fuck, and the one will fall right over. What the fuck just happened?
Like a fainting goat.
Yeah, man, they don't even know. But that was. But I felt good because I stayed limber. So when I got into this little tussle, I didn't pull nothing. And
that's why
didn't hurt
with our
my
Chihuahua,
foot.
we have the harness.
Yep,
and
exactly.
It's locked on the harness, so I can just lift her in the air, and she's up off the ground.
That's what I normally do. But I had both of them, and they were out. So I'm trying to reel their thing, and it was just it was so quick. I'm trying to reel them in, and then they're tied around me, and the dogs are circling, and I'm just nightmare.
Don't carry a knife anymore. That's the thing. I gave it up a couple
of
years ago.
No good. I couldn't. I just felt so bad about that.
These dogs.
Stab a dog. Felt bad enough kicking it, but at the same time, I'm kicking this fucking thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck that noise. Get the fuck out of here. Kicking the ass never killed nobody.
Yes,
Just
for
hurt
sure.
a lot and made you think about it.
Well-
As my old man always said, a kick in the ass never killed nobody.
It's strange because I think that situations like that, they temper us, and they probably temper your dogs too, but they temper us for dealing with panic situations and being prepared to deal with a panic situation. And I think that principle of staying ready is important.
Yeah.
You don't go looking for it. Don't live in a world where bad things are going to be around every corner. Like I said, I used to carry a knife everywhere, but I think I was living in a really self-protective world.
Sure.
But at the same time, be ready for what might actually happen. And if you are ready, you can handle it.
Stay
as
limber.
We've been growing these little plants, and I took them outside for the sun because it's nice out. It's summertime, or almost summer. So I take them out there, and it's windy. And Bee's like, "Oh my God, my plants! You need to be careful. They haven't been hardened." Because apparently, if you grow a plant, and I'm like, "They're fucking plants. They're supposed to be outside." She's like, "Well, they're inside plants, so they've never been hardened by having to deal with wind since they're a little sprout, and because they've grown to a significant length without ever having to deal with that, they can break in the breeze."
Yep.
How fucking fragile have we made our plants? And I saw this immediately as a metaphor for the kids that are growing up today, and like the people that I see.
You break in the breeze, baby.
The lightest breeze is going to knock them over, and I think we need to work on that.
I tried to field goal a dog and it didn't even break my stride.
Yeah.
I'm flexible, baby.
Right, you're developing some resilience and a culture of like.
I did not try to field goal a dog, by the way. I didn't even get it off the ground. I barely even registered that dog.
Well, what is it?
I feel bad about that.
What is it? In weightlifting, they call it progressive overload, right? So if you're trying to put on mass or you're trying to put on strength, if you can lift like 70 pounds 1 week, so that week you try to put 75 or 72.5, right? And you do that for that week. And then the next week you put 75. And the next week you put 77.5. So you're only adding on 2.5 pounds a week, which doesn't really feel like anything when you're lifting it. But in a very short period of time, that's 25 pounds in 10 weeks that you're lifting more than you were doing last week.
Yeah, and you were maxed out at the other one. There's no way I could put on 20 more pounds.
Right, no way. But 2.5 pounds is nothing.
Yeah.
So there's 3 ways that you could do this progressive overload, which is 1, slowly adding weight, or 2, slowly adding reps, or 3, shortening the time between your sets, right?
Oh, okay.
So I guess that in martial arts, I'd be like hitting harder, or hitting longer, or taking less breaks between your rounds that you're working, right? And that's one method. But the whole idea of this with developing resilience is exposing yourself to challenging environments.
Yeah.
Just slightly
In
challenging.
a controlled manner.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of my
Let you break a little bit.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. There's this one trainer guy, C.T. Fletcher. He's lunatic.
I'm familiar with his work.
Yeah, and I love this one line he had. It's like, it doesn't matter what weight you pick up. Just pick it up. Keep picking it up. Sooner or later, it's going to get too light. Just keep picking it up. Pick up the next bigger one. Oh, that's good. And just keep going. That doesn't matter because you've already overcome the first challenge by stepping into the place.
Sure.
Right? I see some really big people at the gym. I'm like, fuck, good for you, man. I'm not thinking, oh my God, what are you even doing here? It's obvious what you're fucking doing here. Like, good for you.
You're getting that big. That's how you stay that
right?
big. Yeah. And if you didn't have to do that, everybody would just do it once, get jacked, and be like, well, I guess I'll just stay like this.
That's it. I'm done. You know. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and I think we should be developing a challenge culture to some degree, or a culture that strength, not like hyper masculine strength, but like a culture of psychological, emotional, physical strength. These aren't bad things.
Well,
right?
and a lot of kids do get that through sport and shit, right? Like, which, I mean, this can be very toxic, but that's the positive aspects, all that kind of shit too, right? But even the sport has kind of gone away. Like, I know the soccer's super popular now, not to speak ill of soccer, it's just, it's not a bunch of conflict involved in that.
But there is pressure against yourself.
No, that's true. And I mean, you are competing directly with somebody else. It's just, it's running, obviously. I just don't see the physical resiliency that you build even through basketball. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where it's not a contact thing, but you still got to push off another motherfucker and try and work around somebody, you know? And I guess soccer, you got that a bit too. What the fuck am I talking about?
Well,
have a donut.
Well, that's the thing about those CrossFit programs, which aren't my favorite because I can't do it. CrossFit sucks because I can't get through a workout. But what I like about CrossFit is you benchmark. So you go to a CrossFit thing and maybe you could do 2 push-ups, not a single chin-up, and like 3 weights over your head.
They call it the Dusty, actually.
Okay, that's it. That's the Dusty. No, that's your benchmark. You write that down, and the next time you go, your only goal is to beat your benchmark. You know, you don't have to do like the master fucking CrossFit instructor level.
Yeah.
If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. And that's your benchmark. And your goal is just to beat your benchmark.
Sure.
Right? And that's pretty cool. You know, I like that idea of training, you know. I've got, I just wrote this thing the other day, and it was strength without philosophy behind it is brutal. Or action without philosophy is brutal. It's brutish, and it's just dumb. And philosophy without action or strength is impotent. It's useless.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of these people, and I see them on the left, and they're talking all this philosophy and all this. Well, are you out doing anything to enact the change you want?
Yeah.
And then I see all these people.
And with their theoretical outrage
Yes,
also.
it's
on
all
top of it.
theory. It's all
I'm
theory.
furious about this thing that can theoretically happen.
Yep. And what are you doing to change it, right? Nothing, except posting.
Well, again,
'Cause
being
that's easy.
furious, like, okay, cool, great.
That's philosophy minus action. But then I see a lot of people on the right out there that are just fucking goons, but they have no philosophy behind it. You know, they haven't really thought things
Well,
out.
that's the trolls on the native fucking websites. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Like, well, I was like, what the fuck do you get out of this? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I think we need to have that balance between your philosophy and your action. You're following through on your words, you know, and I encourage people to, you know, work towards that.
No deal.
No deal?
No deal. I'm not doing it.
Chicken and donuts, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to try and get out here sooner than a month.
You got her.
Love you too.
We should be doing well. And yeah, that's it. That's all.
All right, thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Wait. Subscribe to, check us out. Press follow, subscribe to any of these fucking formats that you've seen.
Oh, yes, do that.
We're on YouTube, Vimeo, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. What else?
iTunes.
iTunes,
Spotify.
Libsyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, check us out. I think we're supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
You guys should check us
like,
out.
tell your friends.
And check out his Pintado's stick boxing on YouTube.
No, don't. I'm ugly.
Yeah. Okay.
I get uglier.
Well,
All right, peace.
bye.